Lesson in Unit 2 is called Solving Equations with a Variable on Both Sides. Now, we've had a lead up to this lesson so far, and already we've had equations that we've called two-step equations. For example, if I had 2f minus 3 equals a negative 7. These are called two-step equations because it takes 2 steps to solve them. And remember, when you're solving two-step equations, you always do the addition and subtraction first. So for example, on the left side, the whole idea is we want to isolate f. We want to get f by itself. And we ask ourselves, what are they doing to f? Well, they're subtracting 3, so we're going to do the opposite. You always do the opposite, and we're going to add 3. And that leaves 2f. And then over on the right side, we have a negative 4. Now we do our addition and subtraction. Or excuse me, we do our multiplication and division. So they're multiplying by 2. We're going to do the opposite and divide by 2. And f is by itself, and we get negative 4 divided by 2 is a negative 2. And if we substituted a negative 2 back in for f, we would find out that the left side of the equation would be the same value as the right side, and it would check out. Now, after this, we had what we called multi-step equations, where we might have had a 2a plus 4 minus 6a plus 1 equals a negative 10. And before we did anything, we combined like terms. And in this case, remember, you always look at the sign in front. So we've got like terms in the 2a and the negative 6a. Remember that 6a is negative because it has a minus sign in front of it. 2a minus 6a is a negative 4a. And then we combine our constants, are just numbers. 4 plus 1, positive 5, equals a negative 10. And then we go from there, in which it's a two-step equation. And that's where we're at right now. Now with the variable on both sides. As with other equations, there's certain steps of order we need to do first. The first step we do in any equation where the variable's on both sides, we use the distributive property. We distribute if there are parentheses. The second step is we combine like terms. So any terms that have the same combination of letters, we add and subtract them, or constants. Once we've done that, the third step, we move the variables to the same side. So we move the variables to one side. And there's a certain phrase I use for this when we do that. And finally, the last step, well, we solve it. Finally, we get the letter, the variable by itself. Now, to save a little time and to make these videos somewhat short, I am going to go through most of the odd ones. And you'll notice that all these problems are paired up, so they're similar. 1 and 2 are very similar. 3 and 4 are very similar. So as we go through the odds, the evens will be very similar to the preceding odd problem that we just did. So if we look at number 1, the very first step, there's not any parentheses, so we don't need to distribute anything. On the left side of the equal sign, there are no like terms, so there's nothing to combine, nor is there on the right side. So that takes care of that step. Now the third step is we're going to move all those variables, the y terms, to one side. Now there's a phrase I use, and we pick on the small one. We pick on the small. And when you pick on a small, you add or subtract something to pick on it, to cancel it. So I have a 5y and I have a 3y. Now 3y is smaller. That's the small one. And what we want to do is ask ourselves, what could I add or subtract to 3y to cancel it out? Well, I'd subtract 3y, because 3y minus 3y cancels. In solving equations, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So if we subtract 3y on the right side, we have to subtract 3y on the other side. And we get 2y minus 8 equals 12. Now it becomes a two-step equation. We do our addition subtraction first. They're subtracting 8, we'll add 8. And then divide by 2. And we get an answer of 10. Now number 2 is very similar to that. Let's take a look at number 3. In number 3, again, go through the progression of steps. There's not any parentheses, so we don't need to distribute. On the left side, there's not any like terms. On the right side, there's not any like terms that we can combine. So we go to the third step, which is get all those variables on one side. Let's pick on the small one. Now, something you do have to consider is when we're moving all those k's to one side of the equal sign, notice on the left side of the equal sign, all I have is k, is a k term. So we definitely want to move everything to the left side, and that's going to happen when we pick on the small one. Now, if that didn't happen when we picked on the small one, we might have to pick on the big one, and it's okay to pick on the big one. It's just you're going to have more negative values that you'll have to deal with. So let's see, what could we add or subtract as 3k to cancel it out? We'll subtract 3k from both sides. We get 4k is equal to, now it's a minus 36, so it's a negative 36. And now we finish it out. They're multiplied by 4. We divide by 4 and we get a negative 9. And number 5, there are not any parentheses. There's not any like terms on the left side. There's not any like terms on the right side. So there's nothing that we have to do to combine terms. Let's pick on the small one. Now remember, when there's not a number in front, there's really a 1. And in this case, it's a negative 1. Now what's smaller, a negative 6m or a negative 1m? Well, a negative 6m is smaller. We'll pick on that. What could we add or subtract to a negative 6m to cancel it? Add 6m. Sloppy on that, so we'll add 6m and then simplify. So I have the 11 in front, a negative 1 plus 6 is a positive, so plus 5m equals 51. All right, let's get rid of the constant. Let's do the addition subtraction first. What could we add or subtract to 11 to cancel it out? Subtract 11. So we get 5m is equal to 40. Now they're multiplying by 5, we'll divide by 5, and we get an answer of 8. And number 6 will be very similar. Okay, and number 7, we do have parentheses. So whatever number is right in front, we're going to distribute that. So we have 3 times 6p is 18p. Now this 1 is negative, so 3 times a negative 1 is a negative 3, so we just simply write it as a negative 3. And that's equal to 11p minus 45. Right? There's not any like terms on the left side of the equal sign, nor is there on the right side. So let's get all the p's on one side, pick on the small one. And in this case, we would subtract 11p. Because 11p minus 11p cancels. So I do that same thing over here. And we get 7p minus 3 equals not just 45, but a negative 45. Okay, if we add 3 to both sides, we get a negative 42, and then divide by 7, we get a negative 6. All right, number 9, we will distribute first to get rid of parentheses. Anytime there's parentheses, we do that first. Now notice this part right here, that's not part of the parentheses. We're just going to hook that on at the end. So 9 times m is 9m. 9 times a negative 3 is a negative 27. And then I hook that plus 3m on. And that's equal to 7m plus 43. Now on the left side, is there like terms? There are. Remember, look at the sign in front. 9m plus 3m is 12m, and then minus 27 equals the 7m plus 43. All right, get all the m's on one side. So pick on the small one. We'll subtract 7m. And these cancel. So I have 5m minus 27 equals the 43. And I'm going to move over here where I have a little bit more room. So now we're going to add 27 to both sides. So let's see, 43, 53, 63, 70. So 5m is equal to 70. And then we'll divide by 5. And in number 9, we would end up with m equals 14. All right, number 11. Okay, now number 11 is a little different from the others. We do have parentheses to get rid of. So remember, when there's not a number, there's a 1. Now in this case, it's a negative 1. It's a minus 1. Now back here, we hook this part onto the end. Now in this one, you've got that 5x, which has nothing to do with the parentheses. We're going to hook it on at the beginning. Now distribute the negative 1. So negative 1 times x, negative 1x, negative 1 times a negative 18, positive 18. Here we'll distribute the negative 2, hook the 6 on at the beginning, negative 2 times x, negative 2x, negative 2 times 15, negative 30. All right, simplify the left side of the equal sign. 5x minus 1x is 4x plus the 18. Simplify the right side. I always like to have the term that has a letter in it first, if you can. So you got that negative 2x. Now combine your constants. 6 minus 30, negative 24. Now we'll finish it off by picking on the small one to get all the x's on one side. Add 2x because a negative 2x plus 2x cancels. We do that over here. We have 6x plus 18 equals a negative 24. They're adding 18, so we'll subtract 18. Let's see, so we're going to subtract them, 24 and 18, 42, I guess. So we have a 6x equals a negative 42, right? Because we subtracted 18 from both sides. Make that a little neater. Okay. So, and we get a negative 42 on that. All right, now we'll divide by 6, and we get a negative 7. Let me check that to make sure that's right, and it is. Okay, so I went through these a little fast, but remember you have the choice to pause, replay, and remember the evens are similar, very similar to the odd ones. So again, the topic on this lesson was solving equations when the variables on both sides.